Welcome back. So the judge in the Senzo Meyiwa murder case has come under fire for comments he made during the trial yesterday. This follows an email from a defense lawyer, Charles Mnisi, stating that he would be unavailable on Monday as he returns from running the Comrades Marathon in Durban, which is, of course, taking place on Sunday. Mbegazeli Benjamin from Judges Matters expressed disappointment in the conduct of legal practitioners during the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, and he now joins us to have that discussion. Mbegazeli, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Yesterday, we were dealing with decorum, which the judge had called for, and this is because of the remarks that Advocate Mnisi had made, referring to one of the police officers as having been the dumbest police officer if he didn't know about the Senzo Meyiwa murder. And yesterday, another spat then played out with Judge Arata Mokgateng expressing his disappointment and also frustration, I guess, on how Advocate Mnisi has requested for time off on Monday. Before we deal with the race element, ordinarily, what's the communication channel between the lawyers as well as the presiding officer in a case of this nature?
Good morning, Alton, and good morning to the viewers. The normal communication channel is you communicate to the judge via the registrar, but you do so through formal communication, right? You write a letter to say, this is the circumstance, these are the issues, and this is what I would like, or I'll request the judge to do. So you don't necessarily communicate directly with the judge, but you communicate via the registrar. And in that communication, you're also required to copy everyone who's involved in the case. So all the opponents must know that you're communicating with the judge at all times. It's unethical, in fact, to have a one-on-one conversation with the judge without all the other lawyers available. So it is correct for Mr. Mnisi to write to the registrar, but you're addressing this to the judge. You don't say, registrar, please tell the judge this. You write as if you're speaking directly to the judge, but obviously you send that letter via the registrar of the judge.
Yeah, and in this, in a legal matter, of course, you'd have the lawyers and then you have the presiding officer. The lawyers are not necessarily employed by the judge, but when it comes to requesting or asking for time off, is it a request that you put forward, or do you say, I will not be available?
No, what you do, remember, first and foremost, as a lawyer, you're an officer of the court. So your first and foremost duty is to the court, and you have an ethical duty to assist the court to obtain justice. And so you make sure that you assist the court in any way. You don't cause unnecessary delays. We all knew that the Comrades Marathon will be run on Sunday, the 8th of June, 6 months ago. We knew that it would be a down run from Pietermaritzburg to Durban. We knew all of those details, even though a lot of us are not running the Comrades Marathon. And so 6 months ago already, the request could have been made that I'm not available on this date. Can I please be excused? So it's not as if you're asking for leave, but you're asking for permission to not be present on the sitting of the court. And so to get an email on the Wednesday before the Monday that you are not available, I don't think that is proper. I think there could have been a better way to do so, and this was just not that way.
Yeah, the request has been denied. The matter will continue, as Judge Arata Mokgateng has indicated. In that particular instance, can the case still go ahead, even in the absence of one of the defense lawyers?
So that's a very difficult one, because Section 35 of the Constitution gives every accused person the right to be present when the case is proceeding. You also have a right to have your legal representative present when you are in court, especially in a criminal case. And so in that, and that's all part of the fair trial rights that an accused has. And so what will likely happen is that the case will proceed, but I don't think that they will proceed with the cross-examination that Mr. Mnisi was busy with. Maybe they might move on to other things and not deal necessarily with that aspect of the case. But yes, of course, it is an inconvenience. It shouldn't be happening. We know that this trial has been running for far too long, and a lot of people's patience is wearing thin at what is happening in the case. And that for us is the biggest concern, is that we really, really expect better from all people involved, whether it's the lawyers, whether it's the judge. We expect better behavior. We expect more seriousness in making sure that this trial is finalized as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and Judge Rata Mokgoatleng does speak about that in his remarks, saying that people are saying that this case has been going on for too long, justice delayed is justice denied. But then he goes on to say, when the judge president asked why were you not sitting on Monday, we'll have to say no, we were waiting for Advocate Mnisi to drive back to Joburg because he was running a marathon. This is South Africa run by blacks. I can tell you now, a white advocate would never have the gall to ask me that. Never. And this has frustrated and upset a lot of people. I saw an ex that you had shared yesterday as well, saying it's not acceptable for a judge to attribute specific behavior, misbehavior to the race of a practitioner. Just expand a bit on that.
Yes, so it was perfectly correct for Judge Mokgoatleng to call out the lawyers and the delays that they and their behavior is causing to the trial. That was acceptable, and he should have called them out for it and asked them to adhere to their ethics. But as soon as the judge started speaking about race and referencing behavior to race, then he crossed the line. That is not acceptable, right? The lawyers across the board, and in fact, judges and magistrates across the country are starting to get concerned about the behavior of lawyers. But it's not a white or black thing. It's not a man, woman thing or anything in between. It has nothing to do with people's demographics or identity. It is behavior that must be called out. And so the judge was wrong in making reference to race. And in fact, Article 9 of the Code of Judicial Conduct is very clear that a judge has to ensure that there is a fair trial. And in doing so, there must be proper decorum in court, there must be order in court, and the judge must sometimes make harsh comments against the lawyers, but he is not allowed to make derogatory statements about a specific person. And in fact, the code just does say you must avoid harsh language. So you must use stern and firm language, but you shouldn't use harsh language, and because that unfortunately becomes unethical on the part of the judge. So it becomes ironic that he is also conducting himself unethically to call out unethical conduct. So again, I wish everyone would just take a step back and sort of get perspective on some of these things, because some of this behavior is just not acceptable.
Yeah, and I wonder if a case could be made out of misconduct against Judge Rata Mokgoatleng. News 24 contacted Judge President Dustin Mlambo of the Gauteng High Court Division. And in response to their questions, the judge president said, I can see no misconduct by the judge in the circumstances of the case as viewed by many. What's your interpretation of it?
Look, I don't think that it rises to the level of serious misconduct, but maybe it does require the judge to withdraw the statement and apologize, because quite possibly there could be a case of misconduct, and I can see it fit in within Section 15 of the Judicial Service Commission Act, read with Article 9 of the Code of Conduct, which does say that a judge has to behave in a particular way, and if they don't behave in that way in court, then there might be a complaint filed with the Judicial Conduct Committee. Unfortunately, that complaint will have to be referred to the head of court for him to take action. And this is where also I think Judge Mlambo shouldn't have made a comment on this, and should have waited at least until the complaint is filed or any other action is taken before he himself says something, because the complaint ultimately has to come back to him, if it is filed, that is. And so in this situation, he would not be entitled to deal with it because he's already made comments in public about it.
Yeah, and just finally in conclusion, what about speaking now about the personal, as the individual, whether it is Judge Rata Mokgoatleng or it is the lawyers, whether from the NPA, the prosecutors, or the defense lawyers, when you just have a level of frustration with how the trial has gone so far, and that then starts impacting your behavior and also how you perceive the people who are involved in that particular case. Are there any tools available to almost say that, okay, let's now ask for heads to cool down a bit so that we can get back to that decorum that is required?
Well, the best thing to happen in this case, I think the judge needs to call everyone into chambers. They need to, privately, they need to have a private conversation about what is happening in court, what are some of the causes of the delays, what is acceptable in terms of cross-examination, what is not acceptable in terms of the comments that lawyers can make. Some of the comments, like you mentioned earlier, to a witness, some of those statements are unacceptable. And so there should really be a private roundtable discussion on some of that. And there should also be cool heads, of course, that reign in that meeting. And everyone should come onto the same page on how this case should proceed and how it can move as quickly as possible, because it has run for far too long. And I do get the frustration, but that does not justify sort of some of the unacceptable behavior that we've seen.